I built Pinecone's first production reference architecture, and I wrote 3 chapters of the book Vector Databases in Production for Busy Engineers. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build the exact RAG pipeline that works in production using LangChain, Pinecone, Next.js, and the Vercel AI SDK to build a chatbot that answers questions grounded in your data. And I'm going to prove it by doing a live demo on my site. If you want to skip ahead and build this now yourself, the link to the tutorial is in the description. My name is Zach Proser, and I've worked on the core engineering teams at companies like Cloudflare, Gruntwork, Pinecone, and WorkOS. I was building distributed systems and shipping apps to production before GenAI was a thing, so I can tell you what's legit and what's BS, and I can say that RAG is definitely legit if you build it correctly. That means that there's also a huge opportunity for seasoned engineers who understand this architecture, because every company is rushing to implement RAG pipelines and chatbots. The problem that I found with most RAG tutorials, and why when I was at Pinecone I was still daily showing up and fixing people's RAG programs in the support forums constantly, was that every RAG tutorial either strays too far towards simplicity or too deep into complexity. So you either get toys that show how to deal with 5 documents, but don't show how to do metadata filtering, for example, or you get extremely complicated PhD level math and matrix multiplication when you're just trying to build a data pipeline and ship an application. My goal with this tutorial is that if you are an experienced developer, you should be able to go from having the documents that you want to embed to having a working chatbot in about 3 hours. If you want to skip ahead and build this now yourself, the link to the tutorial is in the description. But stick around for a second, because I'm going to explain to you exactly why my approach works where others break down and fail. So the reason that most RAG tutorials that you'll find out there are going to fail you are they're either going to present you with a toy example that doesn't provide enough learning for you to generalize towards the architecture itself, or you're going to get bogged down in PhD level theory that you don't actually care about and is not super important right now for understanding how to ship a data pipeline to production. Or worst of all, the tutorial at the very end doesn't actually deploy. Deployment can sometimes be the final 80% of work. You just need to understand the actual patterns and the data flow through this system, and you need to see and work with a real working implementation that deploys to production. Let's look at the actual live demo. So I've used this exact same system that we're talking about here, and I've put my blog through it. So everything that I've ever written on my blog, which is a lot of articles, that's gone into the Pinecone index. And so now as a result, if you ask, a question that's found in the corpus of my writing, you get back an intelligent answer that actually answers your question. So if you ask, like, what is the programming bug? Where did I talk about that one specific thing? Scanning across every blog I've ever written, immediately you get the answer. So the programming bug is the spark of innate curiosity that drives your learning forward. And so you'll see here is this fun related post feature. I think this is incredibly powerful because it jumps you directly to the content. But again, this is a generic RAG pipeline. It's not just about my blog. This could be e-commerce for your company, and it could be related products based off of what the user is asking for. So these RAG patterns are incredibly powerful, and in general, highly recommend just coming here and playing with the demo if you want to understand how it works. I'm going to give you a sneak peek now of the tutorial itself. So let's imagine that you were to buy this and you start using it. Some tutorials, like I said, they either go too simple or they go crazy complex. This has a clear table of contents that I've made, so it's super easy for you to jump to exactly the part that you need clarified. If you want to go through it end to end as an adventure, you get to do that, and it'll explain everything along the way. If you already know most of this and you're just trying to jump to the specific recommendation or the specific piece of architecture, it's easy to do that as well. I put screenshots in here as well as the code, and it shows exactly not just how things should look, but how they should actually behave, as well as explanation around why we do these things. So it's not just the code, here you go, and now you're kind of stuck into doing it that way only forever, but the explanation of why are we doing these things so that you come away with a generalized understanding and learnings that you can apply to building other systems, other RAG pipelines in various languages, regardless of whether or not you're a Next.js developer or you want to work in that system. It also shows how I do sanity checks on data quality. So it's really important, just like with application code, as you're going and building your data pipeline, you're testing and making sure that you're actually getting back quality answers when you just hit your index alone. And then I like to work in some visual. I'm a visual learner too, so I like to use nice visuals that kind of explain everything together. So I really tried to make a rich learning resource that combines the actual code that you need, the explanations of why we do these things the way that we do them, and have broken things up with some visuals to make it a little bit easier to grok. My favorite part is explaining exactly how the API endpoint that contacts the LLM creates your context at runtime and bundles that all up into the exact prompt that it sends to the LLM. This is really the light bulb moment for a lot of developers when they finally say, oh, I think I understand RAG now. And I personally get a lot of joy out of folks of having that, oh, it just clicked moment. And so that's what I've tried to do with this tutorial, is to make it as illustrative as possible. And I myself am a kinesthetic developer in that I like to learn by doing. And as a result, I've applied that same sort of process here. So now that we've seen the finished product, let's start at the beginning. What would the tutorial show you when you're going through the initial part, when you're trying to understand the data science side of this pipeline, right? How do we prepare our data, regardless of what type of file it is? How do we actually use LangChain? How do we load these documents? What is chunking? How do we do it? What's an embedding model? All this kind of stuff. The tutorial actually ships a complete runnable Jupyter notebook, and it demonstrates exactly how to install all the dependencies, how to work with these, how to work with LangChain, how to ingest the data, how to process it. I think Jupyter notebooks are excellent, not just because, it's another toolkit in your toolbox so that you can interact with your colleagues that are already more familiar with Jupyter notebooks. Jupyter notebooks are excellent for providing idempotent tools or runnable examples for your teammate, or runnable documentation. They're excellent for machine learning or Gen AI examples that are public facing at your company. And they're just a convenient way to execute cell by cell, documented code. So it's also just an important skill to be able to work with Jupyter notebooks. And so this tutorial gets you hands-on with an actual Jupyter notebook. You can, interact with and load everything here, and then dump it to the console as you need to. It'll, the tutorial actually teaches you how to use the secrets like an OpenAI API key and Pinecone API key to set up everything that you need to set up to create the index, to do the ingest and the embedding and the upsert properly. So we've seen that the tutorial is going to guide you step by step through all the pieces you need to know, and allows you to jump ahead and wherever you need to go quickly. The data processing steps are all codified in a Jupyter notebook that shows you how to do everything step by step and in a nice way that's auditable. And then to complete the loop on the other side, we have this complete production application that uses the Vercel AI SDK, and you get access to this as well. And so it's a Next.js site. It implements a simple blog similar to my site, but then it connects with the actual Pinecone index that you've just created. And it shows how to build that same interface that I built into my site in a generic way, so that you could then take this and reskin it for your own company, for your own brand, for your own products. This is an excellent starting point for anyone that's actually trying to go and do a full RAG pipeline in production using Next.js and Vercel and the Vercel AI SDK and Pinecone. What I love about this is, as a developer who's experienced, let me just see the code, right? So I just hop right into it. And you can deploy this and run it yourself and it all works, or you could also just use it as a reference. Here's the cleanest RAG API endpoint that shows you how to bundle context at runtime, how to supply it to the LLM when you're asking for a completion, and then how to stream that response back to your actual end user so that they get the response grounded in your company's proprietary data and products. So as we've just seen, tutorials are not really going to get you where you need to go if you're trying to learn to build RAG pipelines. It's because a lot of tutorials are little snapshots. They're looking at a small piece of the system. Instead, what you need to do is ship an actual pipeline project end to end. So in this case, you get to ship an actual pipeline project from beginning to end. First, ingesting and preparing the data, processing it with LangChain, inserting it and upserting it to the Pinecone vector database and learning about how that process works, and then connecting to it with an actual production web application and using the Vercel AI SDK to stream back results that are instantly delivered to your users and grounding their responses in your company's actual proprietary data or products. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. RAG is not for beginners, but if you're an experienced engineer, then you don't need a separate AI bootcamp or certifications or to go through 40 hours of video telling you the same thing. You just need the proven production patterns that work using the latest cutting edge tech. This project includes all of that and nothing else that you don't need. If you'd like to give it a shot, the link is in the description below. This is how you become an AI engineer without the BS. See you in the next one.